State your name for the record, please.
Name's Rocco Perry.
And Rocco, where were you born?
Well, I was born in a little place in Calabria in southern Italy called Plati.
And what are you doing now? Where are you at?
Well, right now I live on 166th Bay Street North, up down in Hamilton. And right now I own a profitable business, making money, buying and selling some things. That's pretty much it. Hamilton's a beautiful place. It's made me some good money. Couldn't complain. Rocco Perry, born on December 30th, 1887, was an organized crime figure in Ontario, Canada. He was born in Plati, Calabria, which is in the southern part of Italy. He was last seen alive April 23rd, 1944. When the Temperance Act in Ontario took place on September 16th, 1916, that prohibited the sale of alcohol as well as the distribution of alcohol. Rocco Perry became a bootlegger in that time and began to sell and distribute alcohol even though it was against the law. This all took place in our very own Hamilton, Ontario. People began to come to Hamilton in the early 18 to mid 1800s. They began to come here because they saw a land of opportunity. They saw a land with water where they could build ports where they can get their food from. They stayed because Hamilton began to industrialize. It began to develop. Steel factories were built such as the Fasco and Stelco. Jobs were being created. Everything just started to look up for Hamilton. Transportation in the beginning were horse-drawn wagons or even walking. In the late 1800s, they used electric power vehicles. To today, the HSR, known as the bus to us. They got their goods by fishing off the coast. The resources that they caught, mainly in that time, were carp. The reason has changed that people have lived here because the city of Hamilton has turned into more of a tertiary industry than a manufacturing one, which is what established the city in the first place, which is why Hamilton is known as Steel City. From the 1900s, when all the jobs were manufacturer-based and everything, here we have a change, a shift in job opportunities in the city of Hamilton to more of a tertiary / quaternary sector. A lot of businesses have been established down here. It's just an eye catcher. So without further ado, take a step back in time with me and see how Hamilton got to be the way it is today. During the pre-colonial times, neutral Indians used much of the land of Hamilton, but were gradually driven out by the Five Nations, later known as the Six Nations, who allied with British versus the Hurons and their French allies. 1784, 10,000 United Empire Loyalists settled Upper Canada, today known as Southern Ontario. The United Empire Loyalists of Ontario are also known as UELAC, which were founded at a meeting on February 28, 1986. This meeting was called by Mr. William Hamilton Merritt and others and occurred at the Canadian Institute in Toronto. Sir John Beverley Robinson was elected president and Mr. Merritt secretary. A branch of the UELA of Ontario was formed in Hamilton, Ontario in 1902 with Judge Snyder as president. The Hamilton branch was known as the Head of the Lake branch. A petition was conducted by Mr. Stanley Mills and others in 1931 with the result that the Central Council was pleased to grant authority to constitute and organize a branch of the UELAC at Hamilton. By May 1933, membership had increased to approximately 175 members, including honorary and executive officers. Mr. Stanley Mills served as president of the Hamilton branch from 1931 to 1935. During 1935, Mr. L. Leland Merrill was Dominion President and Dominion Council met in Hamilton. In 1936, Mr. Merrill became President of Hamilton Branch, and then in 1937, Judge Henry Carpenter was elected President. The United Empire Loyalist Building is located on Main Street, just by Houston. In 1811, the first inhabitants of this area, which today is known as Hamilton, were the native Indians. A year later, in 1812, George Hamilton founded Hamilton after purchasing a farm, the Durand Farm, from James Durand, who was a businessman and political leader in Upper Canada. In that same year, the War of 1812 occurred. The War of 1812 lasted until 1813. It was where the British regulars and the Canadian militia defended themselves from the American army. This is the exact place where it occurred. Gore Park, or the Gore on King Street as it was called during the early years of its existence, has been a bone of contention ever since its creation. George Hamilton became a ceaseless promoter of his new town. The center of what was usually a disgusting mud hole was used by the adjacent merchants as a dump. The Gore on King Street was now a major problem. Sir Allan MacNab, who was born in 1798 and died in 1862, lived in this beautiful property, today known as Dundurn Castle. This home was completed in 1835 for him and his family. Dundurn Castle is a national landmark, and I am very happy to say that it is in the city of Hamilton. It is very important to the heart of the city, and is a great example of the picturesque movement of Canada. Dundurn Castle was purchased by the city of Hamilton in 1964 to 1967 and restored at that same time. The castle today in 2011 plays an important role in the city's history. It was built by a young English architect by the name of Robert Witherall. On June 9, 1846, Hamilton officially gained city status. During the mid-1850s, they began to build railway tracks and finish some for the railway that connected East and West Canada. In 1967, the most important date in Canadian history, Confederation. That was the largest emigration of people from the British Isles to North America. In 1874, the Hamilton Street Railway, or better known as the HSR, were just horse-drawn carriages that would pretty much drive people around the city. In 1892, that switched to electric-powered vehicles, and today, better known as buses, who transport 21 million plus people a year. Hamilton's population doubled in 1900 to 1914 because of the expansion of the industrial sector. Stelco, established in 1910, and DeFasco in 1912, were the two main companies in Hamilton at the time. They both produced high-quality tubular steels and laser-welded blanks. A lot of jobs were in demand at the time, and a lot of people ended up getting jobs at these two companies during the early 1900s. One of the city's main sports attractions was football. The Tiger Cats were established in 1872 up until 1949. They were known as the Tigers of Hamilton. They played teams from all around, unknown teams from Ottawa, everywhere. In 1950, they were actually founded and made into a professional football team. The home of the Tiger Cats is Ivor Wynne Stadium in downtown Hamilton. McMaster University, founded in 1887 by Senator William McMaster, who was the first president of the Canadian Bank of Commerce. Over 100 years later, McMaster University is one of the most recognized student full-time undergraduate universities. Here you have University Hall, and as you can tell, it's an old-fashioned building and it was built many years ago. This is an old-fashioned example of how the buildings were many years ago and the architecture of them. Across the street from Hamilton Hall, we have BSB building, and around we have JHE and many other buildings. And this is an example of how they were built today. These buildings are more recent and more in today's nature. As seen here, Mills Library, everything is much more modern. This is McMaster University. I'm Officer Aaron Rogers. I'm here talking on behalf of Rocco Perry, our latest bootlegger. He was last seen on April 23rd, 1944. We believe he got murdered, but we are not sure when, where, or how. We believe that someone might have put him in cement blocks and drowned him in the bay. We will not know until the bay dries up whether there's a body down there or not. Thank you.